The frozen wasteland of the Hoth system served as the desolate backdrop for one of the most pivotal and widely studied military engagements of the Galactic Civil War. Often categorized simply as an Imperial victory, the Battle of Hoth is, in reality, a complex study of asymmetric warfare, strategic blunders, and the brilliant execution of a delaying action against overwhelming odds. This tactical analysis will break down the strategies employed by both the Galactic Empire and the Alliance to restore the Republic, examining how geographical factors, technological limitations, and leadership decisions shape the outcome of the battle. To understand the engagement, one must first look at the strategic context that brought these two disparate forces to the sixth planet of the Hoth system. Following the destruction of the first Death Star at the Battle of Yavin, the Rebel Alliance was forced to abandon its headquarters. They needed a new base of operations that was remote, uninhabited, and capable of hiding their energy signatures from Imperial scanners. Hoth, a world encased entirely in ice and suffering from lethal sub-zero temperatures and violent blizzards, offered the perfect natural camouflage. The Alliance Corps of Engineers, under the direction of Major Kem Monin, constructed Echo Base by hollowing out a series of natural ice caverns. The environment itself was incredibly hostile, requiring extensive modification to all Rebel equipment just to keep repulsor lifts and power cells functioning. However, this same hostility meant the Empire would not naturally patrol the sector. The Rebel strategy was fundamentally defensive and based on the principle of minimal footprint. They knew that if the Empire discovered them, they could not win a pitched battle of annihilation. Therefore, Echo Base was designed not as an impenetrable fortress, but as a temporary staging ground with a built-in evacuation protocol. The cornerstone of their defense was a captured Imperial Kuat drive yard's power generator, which powered a massive theater energy shield. This shield was strong enough to deflect any orbital bombardment, but it was a theater shield, meaning it only covered the immediate airspace around the base, forcing any attacker into a costly ground assault. The Imperial discovery of Echo Base was largely a matter of attrition and sheer scale. The Empire had dispatched thousands of Viper probe droids across the galaxy in a dragnet operation known as the Imperial Probe Droid Project. When a probe droid landed on Hoth and transmitted images of a customized power generator, Darth Vader immediately recognized it as the Rebel base. The Imperial fleet, designated Death Squadron and commanded by Admiral Ozzel, was ordered to the system. This brings us to the first and perhaps most defining tactical blunder of the entire battle. Imperial naval doctrine typically dictates dropping out of hyperspace at the outer edge of a star system to approach stealthily and trap the enemy. Admiral Ozzel, however, attempting to achieve tactical surprise through speed, ordered the fleet to drop out of hyperspace incredibly close to the Hoth system. This massive sudden appearance of Imperial Star Destroyers was immediately detected by Rebel sensor arrays. The element of surprise was entirely lost. Because the Rebels had advance warning, General Carlist Riekon was able to activate the theater energy shield before the Imperial fleet could initiate a devastating orbital bombardment. Ozzel's mistake fundamentally altered the paradigm of the battle. What should have been a swift and decisive orbital strike was instantly transformed into a grueling, protracted surface engagement. Darth Vader summarily executed Ozzel for this incompetence, promoting Captain Firmus Piet to Admiral. But the damage to the Imperial battle plan was already done. The Empire was forced to deploy its ground forces, Blizzard Force, outside the perimeter of the Rebel energy shield and march overland to destroy the generator, all while the Rebel Alliance prepared a phased evacuation. General Rieken's tactical objective was simple, but incredibly difficult to execute. He had to delay the Imperial advance long enough to evacuate high command, essential personnel, and as much materiel as possible, while ensuring the safe departure of their medium transport vessels through the Imperial blockade in orbit. To achieve this, the Rebels established a network of defensive trenches arrayed in front of the Echo Base perimeter. These trenches were manned by Rebel infantry and supported by heavy weapons emplacements, specifically DF.9 anti-infantry batteries and 1.4 FDP tower light anti-vehicle batteries. The trenches were designed not to hold the line indefinitely, but to create a kill zone that would slow the Imperial advance and inflict maximum casualties. Supporting the infantry was Rogue Squadron, commanded by Luke Skywalker, piloting modified Incom T-47 airspeeders. These craft were originally civilian snowspeeders, heavily modified with armor plating and blaster cannons, but they lacked deflector shields and were never intended for heavy military combat. The Imperial ground assault was commanded by Major General Maximilian Veers, a brilliant and ruthless tactician who specialized in mechanized infantry assaults. Veers commanded Blizzard Force, the spearhead of which consisted of all-terrain armored transports, or AT-AT walkers, supported by the smaller bipedal all-terrain scout transports, or AT-STs. Veers chose to drop his forces beyond the protective dome of the Rebel shield and march directly through the blizzard toward the power generator. The AT-AT is a psychological weapon as much as a tactical one. Standing 22 meters tall and encased in heavy durasteel armor, the Walker is virtually impervious to conventional blaster fire. Its slow, methodical stomping gait was designed to instill terror in enemy infantry, while its heavy chin-mounted laser cannons and side-mounted medium blasters could decimate defensive emplacements from long range. The Imperial strategy was a classic direct assault, relying on overwhelming firepower and impenetrable armor to crush the Rebel defenses. As the AT-ATs entered the engagement zone, the Rebel infantry opened fire, but their blasters and even their heavy anti-vehicle turrets merely scored the armor of the Imperial walkers. The DF.9 turrets were quickly targeted and destroyed by the walkers' superior range and firepower. The Rebel trenches provided cover from the freezing wind and some protection from the AT-STs, but they were largely ineffective against the towering AT-ATs, which could simply fire down into the trenches or crush them beneath their massive footpads. Realizing that conventional weapons were useless, Commander Skywalker formulated an improvised tactic on the fly. He ordered Rogue Squadron to use the airspeeder's rear-mounted harpoon and tow cables normally used for towing cargo to entangle the articulated legs of the AT-ATs. This was an incredibly dangerous maneuver, requiring the fragile airspeeders to fly in tight circles around the walkers, navigating through intense anti-aircraft fire and the walkers' own defensive crossfire. The tactic achieved limited success. A speeder piloted by Wedge Antilles successfully tripped one AT-AT, which was subsequently destroyed by a concentrated barrage of Rebel blaster fire directed at its weaker neck joint. However, this success came at a catastrophic cost to Rogue Squadron. The airspeeders were simply too fragile, and many were shot down by the heavy Imperial fire or crashed due to pilot error in the blinding snow. While the ground battle raged, the true strategic brilliance of the Rebel plan was unfolding in the airspace above Echo Base. The Alliance had stationed a massive Kuat drive yards for its 150 planetary ion cannon near the base. This weapon was absolutely crucial to their evacuation strategy. As a Rebel medium transport launched, the ion cannon would fire a concentrated burst of ionized energy at the orbiting Imperial Star Destroyers. These blasts did not destroy the Imperial ships, but they completely overloaded their deflector shields and electrical systems, effectively paralyzing the massive vessels and creating a temporary, localized breach in the Imperial blockade. This allowed the defenseless Rebel transports, escorted by pairs of X-Wing starfighters, to slip past the paralyzed Star Destroyers and jump to hyperspace. The timing of these launches had to be perfectly synchronized with the firing of the ion cannon, a logistical feat managed flawlessly by Rebel flight control under extreme pressure. Back on the surface, General Veers continued his relentless advance. Despite the loss of one walker and the damage to several others, Blizzard Force's overwhelming firepower eventually broke the Rebel line. The remaining Rebel infantry, suffering heavy casualties from the cold and the Imperial bombardment, were ordered to fall back into the base. Veers, piloting the lead walker, designated Blizzard 1, finally brought the Rebel power generator into his sights. With a single concentrated barrage from his heavy laser cannons, Veers destroyed the generator. The massive explosion shattered the device, and the invisible theater shield protecting Echo Base collapsed instantly. The fall of the shield marked the end of the Rebel delaying action and the beginning of the base's final collapse. With the airspace now clear, the Empire was free to land dropships right at the base entrances, deploying hundreds of cold-weather assault stormtroopers, commonly known as snowtroopers. These elite infantrymen were armed with E-11 blaster rifles and heavy E-web repeating blasters designed to quickly pacify the narrow ice corridors of the Rebel installation.